The gospel narrative that we just heard about the passion and the death of Jesus is one of those that has managed to make the leap from the pulpit to the pew to public conversation. And so, for the most part, most of us are familiar with it, and even the general public, whether they're a believer or a non believer, or maybe just one of those that are just curious about the Christian faith, have heard about it. And so, as such, much has been said and much has been written about the passion and the death of Jesus. And so, as we celebrate Good Friday, and given the length of this reading, I generally try to keep my reflection on this scripture reading brief so that we have something to take with us and then we can reflect upon perhaps later in the day or in the days to come. And there was a French philosopher who proposed a theory called mimetic desire. And the gentleman's name is Rene Girard. And I believe he died somewhere in 2014, 2015. And to help understand the beginning of the theory, maybe we've had an opportunity to go somewhere or to be somewhere in a larger metropolitan area, and we may find ourselves, with in the company of those around us who are what we would call mimes, where they mimic your behavior, but they do it silently. And so the important word is imitation. And we all know that when a group of people begin imitating one another, the differences between them quickly evaporate. And if I can just leap a little bit ahead, that's exactly what happens in this narrative of Jesus' passion and death. All of a sudden, the differences between the religious leaders and the political authorities evaporates, and they all get on the same page, and it all results in the death of Jesus. And what has set this all up is the disciple or the religious authorities are responding to Jesus's ever growing, ever more popular public ministry. Jesus is attracting more and more people, and they are responding to his message message of where he includes everyone at his table, both men and women. They're responding to his message of uplifting them and calling them to faith, and perhaps not calling them to a way of life that is very carefully tied to a religious, I should say, hierarchy of religious setting that benefits a few, but not everyone. And so Jesus is calling out this, and it's growing in popularity. And so Jesus is now seen as an external threat to the community by the religious leaders. And as such, he becomes a threat to the political authority because it's causing an upheaval amongst the people. And so quickly the attention in this theory of mimetic desire, the attention shifts to one individual or a scapegoat. And as I mentioned before, differences evaporate. The struggles in between the parties that usually are at loggerheads over everything, and obviously enemies become friends. It's important to note that the disciples never really get caught up into this mob mentality, and they never engage in the scapegoating. And that's an important thing to remember. Because when Jesus does die, and as he endures and goes through this very gruesome death that's not for the faint of heart, never do we hear him call for revenge or retribution. Rather, Jesus' passion and his death and the actions of the disciples break that cycle, break the cycle of retribution when something wrong has occurred. And what emerges is a new way of thinking, a way of thinking that we commonly call social justice. So let us remember and let us think and reflect upon how is it that in our own way can we break a cycle of perhaps retribution or revenge. It may not be on a grand scale and it may not be on a violent scale, but maybe turning the other cheek and doing the right thing when it was when it's very convenient and very easy probably not to do that. We break that cycle of revenge and retribution, and we allow social justice to flow in. I'm Gene Hellahan, a priest of the Diocese of Southern Ohio.